The least natural environment for a teenager is the inside of a casket. Yet, that was the last place where I saw Tyree in a small church in North Philadelphia 2 summers ago. I had met Tyree working as an admin of a program for young men on house arrest, a program that he had graduated and was proud to be a mentor role for the new young people coming in from juvenile placement or detention, incarceration. One day, I was there teaching a workshop on professional identity development and career exploration when the lesson was interrupted by a blood-curdling shriek, and the program director was quickly whisked into a side office of the room where I was teaching. Clearly, something was up, but I felt like it was important for me to keep the attention of the young people in the room, so I kept teaching. A few minutes later, the second in command walked out of the office, and I looked over to him and I mouthed, "What's up?" And he looked at me and said, it's Tyree." And I kind of gave him an inquisitive look, and he responded and said, "He's dead." Before I could start to process what that meant, he gestured to the young men behind me, still unaware of the situation, and said, "Can you keep them occupied while we figure out how we're going to break the news?" And so I took a breath and told him, yes, yeah, I can do that. And went back and tried my best to continue on with this lesson, holding the weight that I knew that they would all be receiving shortly. In the coming weeks and months, we all processed Tyree's death. And tragic as it was something that was really familiar to all of the young men in the program. This was not the first friend or family member, person they knew who they had lost to gun violence in Philadelphia. Something where this violence was so encroaching in their lives that for each of them, it was easier to imagine not surviving until 21 than it was for them to think about having a successful and thriving career. For me as their teacher and facilitator, this gave me pause to how I did my work. We often are talking about career trajectory and thinking about the future, and often that is met with resistance. What I had not considered is how that resistance exists because many of these young people feel like we are trying to talk about a future that they actually don't believe that they have access to. And so this had me shift in the way that I approach these conversations. Rather than talking about careers and trajectory, we had a different conversation and just really started with, hey, what are you curious about learning more about right now? What are you interested in? What do you feel like you might be passionate about, you want to learn more about? And all of a sudden we had a different conversation. We had young people talking about wanting to go into music, wanting to go into fashion, wanting to learn about real estate and construction. And one young man in the site, when we were having these conversations and asking about what he is curious about, said, "Mr. Luke, no one in my life has ever asked me that question before. No one. My name is Luke Butler. And as the founder of Thriving Mindsets, I like to hold space for young people to express wherever they are, however they feel about their curiosities about how the world works, how the world of work works, and try and help connect them and expose them to opportunities that start to flesh out that story for them so that they can see an alternate future than losing their life in the violence of the streets of Philadelphia. For me, as a white man, I know I can never do this work alone. I often talk to young people and say, I'm not the person who you want to meet, but I can likely connect you to that person. And in this work, the work is very messy because it works at the speed of a young person's trust. And even if you start to talk about their curiosity and talk about the things that they are passionate about, they still may not trust that you are a person who they want to give that information. They also may still not be feeling like they have access to that future. And so my ask is this: if you are a person in this moment when so much is at play in the world, to rather than having scripted conversations about careers with young people and a future, when truthfully none of us know what that's going to look like 6 days from now, to say nothing of 6 months or 6 years from now. But if you're willing to have messy conversations with young people that respect their humanity and allow them to be leaders into their future, and to support and nurture them in seeing the alternate futures and endings to their story than those that end in their least natural environment, then I would love to talk to you about this work.